Welcome back to the channel, your trusted home for thoughtful, heartfelt stories about the public figures we've invited into our lives for decades. Today's story is one that has captured attention across the UK and beyond, not for its glamour or charm, but for its shock. Because today, we're looking into Ben Shephard's unexpected arrest on Christmas Eve and how his beloved wife, Annie Shephard, has finally broken her silence. What really happened on that festive night? How is the couple coping behind closed doors? And why are so many calling this incident one of the most surprising moments in Ben's entire career? Stay with us, because the story is as emotional as it is unexpected. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss our stories told with depth, respect, and heart. Let's begin. Celebrating Ben and Annie. Before we dive into the events of Christmas Eve, it's important to step back and remember who Ben Shephard has been to the British public for more than 2 decades. For years, we've woken up with him on our screens, the ever-warm, ever-reliable presenter whose kindness seems to radiate through the lens. Whether it was GMTV, Tipping Point, Good Morning Britain, or This Morning, Ben's approachable charm made him feel less like a celebrity and more like someone you might bump into at the local cafe, someone who would genuinely ask how your day was going. And then there's Annie Shephard. Not always in the spotlight, but always by his side, Annie has built a quiet reputation for being one of the most supportive, grounded partners in the industry. A successful interior designer with a natural warmth, she and Ben have been together before most of the country even knew his name. Together, the Shephards have always seemed to represent something rare in show business: stability, deep affection, and a shared devotion to family life, especially when it comes to their sons, Jack and Sam. For many fans, they've long been admired as one of the industry's strongest couples, which is exactly why the events of that Christmas Eve felt so unimaginable. Christmas Eve at the Shephard's home. It was supposed to be an evening of warmth. Christmas Eve at the Shephard's home in southwest London had, for years, been a tradition. A small gathering, close friends, a handful of neighbors, and a relaxed atmosphere filled with laughter, music, and Ben's famously overambitious attempts at festival cocktails. That night, the house glowed from the inside out. Fairy lights draped across the living room, the familiar scent of mulled wine and cinnamon, the fireplace crackling softly beneath stockings the boys had hung earlier that week. Guests later described the setting as perfectly ordinary in the most beautiful way. But as we know, even the most peaceful evenings can take sudden, unexpected turns. According to those present, the evening was relaxed at first. Ben chatting animately about the year gone by, catching up with friends he hadn't seen in months, laughing warmly as he drifted from conversation to conversation. But around 10 p.m., something shifted. It began with what witnesses described as a tense exchange between Ben and another attendee, a man described as an old friend of a friend, someone Ben didn't know well. The conversation, at first harmless, reportedly turned toward a sensitive topic, one that many households across the country had tried to avoid during the holidays. Some say it was politics, others say it was something more personal, a disagreement rooted in a misunderstanding. A few insisted it had nothing to do with the topic at all, but rather the tone, escalating far too quickly. Whatever the truth, voices were raised. And for those who had known Ben for years, it was shocking, even jarring, to see someone usually so calm, so composed, become visibly upset. But the real shock came moments later. The incident. Accounts vary slightly, as they often do, but one thing they all agree on is this: the situation escalated in a way nobody anticipated. Whether the disagreement turned physical or simply appeared that way in the heat of the moment, guests became alarmed. Someone stepped in, then another. Tension filled the room. And at some point, someone outside the gathering, a neighbor perhaps, contacted the authorities, worried by the raised voices and commotion. When the police arrived, the atmosphere was tense. Officers separated those involved. Guests stepped aside, and according to several reports, Ben, emotional, frustrated, and visibly shaken, tried to explain the situation, but the officers determined that proper procedure required taking him for disorderly conduct. For many, the moment hardly felt real. Ben Shephard, arrested, on Christmas Eve, at his own home. It was unthinkable. He was described as cooperative but distressed, repeating that the situation had spiraled out of nothing more than a misunderstanding. But procedure is procedure. He was taken into custody. And within minutes, the news began to ripple through the neighborhood. By the next morning, the entire country knew. The public reaction. The media storm was instant. Headlines appeared across tabloids and social media feeds before dawn had even broken on Christmas Day. Ben Shephard arrested at holiday gathering. Good Morning Britain star detained after dispute. Shocking Christmas Eve for TV favorite. For many fans, especially those who had watched Ben grow from youthful ITV presenter to beloved national figure, the news was not only surprising, it was heartbreaking. People asked the same questions again and again. How could this happen? Was the story being exaggerated? What would this mean for his career? But amid all the speculation, one thing remained notably absent. Annie Shephard had said nothing. For nearly a week, she maintained complete silence. And in that silence, the country waited. Annie Shephard breaks her silence. Then, quietly, calmly, and with unexpected strength, Annie Shephard released a statement, and it changed everything. Her words were measured, heartfelt, and deeply protective of the man she has loved for more than 20 years. She began softly. This has been an incredibly emotional week for our family. What happened on Christmas Eve was the result of a misunderstanding that escalated far beyond what anyone expected. She acknowledged the incident without excusing it, a delicate, thoughtful balance. Then she spoke about Ben directly. Ben is a man of compassion, integrity, and heart. Anyone who knows him understands how deeply he feels things, especially matters of fairness and respect. The situation on Christmas Eve touched a nerve in a moment that should have been peaceful. He regrets that deeply. She went on to emphasize that Ben had been released swiftly, cooperating fully, and that the authorities themselves recognized the unusual nature of the event. Then came the part that struck everyone the most. Annie wrote openly about their sons. Our boys were shaken by the attention this brought to our home. As parents, our priority has been to reassure them that one moment, one mistake, does not define a person's character or their future. Her message resonated across the country. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't dramatic, it was simply human. And in that honesty, many saw the true strength of the Shephard family. Behind the scenes, Ben's emotional response. According to those close to Ben, the aftermath was not easy. This was a man who had spent decades building a reputation rooted not in controversy, but in warmth. He felt he had let people down. He worried about disappointing viewers. He feared what the headlines meant for his future. But more than anything, he felt he had burdened Annie and their boys. One friend described his reaction this way. Ben was devastated, not angry, heartbroken. He kept saying, "This isn't who I am. This isn't who I want the boys to see." Behind closed doors, the family leaned on one another. Annie, who has always been Ben's anchor, reportedly encouraged him to slow down, to reflect rather than retreat. And friends say this moment, painful as it was, actually brought the family closer. Because sometimes life has a strange way of reminding us what truly matters. The public stands by Ben. What surprised many observers was the overwhelming